The Wild West, just hearing those words might bring to mind scenes of dusty saloons, tumbleweeds rolling across an endless plain, and the distant whinny of a lone horse under a copper sky. But tonight, let's wander slowly, gently, into a version of the old American West that doesn't gallop through gunfights or shout across poker tables, but instead strolls quietly through the slower, stranger rhythms of life in a time where you, soft and modern as you are, likely wouldn't survive a single day. Imagine now that you're standing at the edge of a quiet frontier town, somewhere in the 1870s, the air dry and still, the sun already warming the timber boards of the porch, beneath your worn leather boots. You don't own socks, they haven't caught on yet out here, and your feet itch against the rough, inner seams of your only pair of shoes, which were likely inherited, not purchased. The smell in the air is complex, a blend of sun-baked manure, stale tobacco smoke, iron from the blacksmith shop, and faint sour bread drifting from someone's open window. There's no scent of shampoo, no waft of clean laundry, no whir of electric fans, just the occasional breeze that kicks dust into your eyes and dries your already parched lips. Your morning begins, as all mornings here do, before dawn, with the mournful creak of wooden boards underfoot as someone, maybe you, heads outside to relieve themselves in the outhouse, where splinters, spiders, and a truly indescribable chill await. Hygiene, you'll find, is not what you're used to. There is no indoor plumbing, no running water, and definitely no antibacterial soap. You might wash your face at the pump if it's working, using water you fetched yourself yesterday from the creek 2 miles away. There is no toothpaste, only a rough twig or old cloth dipped in salt or ashes. Your breath smells like old beans and dreams. Breakfast, if you're lucky, might be corn mush and a piece of cold bacon left over from last night, eaten quietly at a wobbly table beside a window that lets in more flies than light. You chew slowly, aware that each bite is part of a limited stockpile. Food isn't abundant, and storing it without refrigeration means mold and spoilage are regular guests in your pantry. In fact, just keeping food safe from rats is a constant challenge. Outside, the town slowly stirs to life. A wheelbarrow squeaks past, filled with manure for the fields. A dog barks without energy, and 2 neighbors shout greetings. In the tired, gravelly voices of people who haven't had a good night's sleep in years, you hear the distant clang of a blacksmith hammering iron, a sound that is oddly comforting in its rhythm, as if the land itself is being forged and reshaped, stroke by stroke. The dusty main street offers little protection from the sun, which rises higher with each hour, and already, by mid-morning, sweat clings to your neck, stinging the shallow cuts left by yesterday's shaving knife or zooming. You even bother to shave. Most people don't, especially not women, who labor just as hard as men, if not harder, washing laundry by hand in iron tubs, tending to children, chopping wood, baking bread in stifling kitchens without proper ventilation, and still finding time to sweep dust that will only return again tomorrow. There is no makeup, no mirrors, no Instagram, only the slow erosion of vanity by relentless work and weather. If you're a traveler, you might be staying at the town's only boarding house, where the bed is stuffed with straw that crackles and shifts beneath you, and the sheets are changed perhaps once a season, if the owner remembers. You try not to think too hard about the source of last night's itching. Sleep, when it comes, is shallow, interrupted by the creaking of footsteps, snoring from the next room, or mice scratching beneath the floorboards. Even dreams feel dusty. If you're a local, your home is a one-room cabin with no insulation, a roof that leaks in the rain, and windows that rattle at night with each passing wind. Winters are bitter and long, summers unbearably hot. There's no electricity, only candlelight or the flicker of an oil lamp that spits and smokes. Reading, if you're literate, is brief and tiring on the eyes. Most books are old, torn, hand-me-downs Bibles, almanacs, or perhaps one battered novel passed from hand to hand, its cover long gone. And what of medicine? A splinter gone bad could mean a fever that leads to death. A simple toothache might end with a visit to the barber's urgent, who will extract it, using rusted tools and a stiff shot of whiskey as your only anesthetic. Childbirth, for women, is the most dangerous gamble of all. There are no trained doctors nearby, just remedies passed down from mothers, who themselves buried sisters and friends in shallow graves behind the chapel. The graveyard, by the way, is always full. Children die often, Adults rarely live past 50. Everyone limps a little. Everyone knows grief. Yet somehow, life continues. People find joy in small things. A slice of pie cooled on a windowsill, a letter from back east delivered by stagecoach, or a fiddle tune played under lantern light at the general store on a Saturday night. People laugh. Even here, they fall in love. They argue. They forgive. They live days that, to us, would feel impossibly hard. And they call them ordinary. The Wild West wasn't wild like a movie yet. Was wild like an untamed garden. Unpredictable, rough, strangely beautiful, and full of hidden thorns. As the sun begins to sink, and shadows lengthen across the dusty town, you realize that your body aches, your throat is dry, and your patience thin. And this, dear listener, was just the morning. The first part of the day has barely passed, and now the afternoon settles in with a weight that feels both familiar and oppressive. There is sunlight, yes, but it is the kind of sunlight that does not energize, only presses down like a warm, dusty blanket, heavy with the scent of dried earth, animal sweat, and fatigue. The air is still, but not silent. It hums gently with the small, persistent sounds of daily life. A fly buzzing somewhere near your ear. A creaky door opening lazily. A distant chicken complaining about something that probably doesn't matter. If you found yourself working in one of the sparse fields on the edge of town, your hands are already rough, blistered from the plow, and the backs of your legs ache from stooping under the weight of work. A pair of oxen stands nearby, blinking slowly, sharing in your exhaustion, their sides rising and falling with the same sluggish rhythm as your breath. There are no machines to help you, no engines, no shortcuts, just the heat, the dust, and the stubbornness of earth that has never really wanted to be farmed. You're sweating through your shirt, which clings damply to your skin, and your lunch if you remember to pack. One is nothing more than a hunk of dry cornmeal bread and a slice of yesterday's jerky, still chewy and flavorless. The water you drink is lukewarm, scooped from a clay jug, and possibly shared with a few stray flies. It tastes slightly of iron, slightly of mildew, and entirely of disappointment. But it's the only water you've got. Somewhere across town, perhaps on a shaded porch, an elderly woman is spinning wool slowly, rhythmically, as if the thread of her memory were being drawn out along with the yarn. Her face is lined not with dramatic stories, but with the wear of repeating the same day, in different seasons, for decades. She watches the road, not because she expects anyone, but because roads are where people used to arrive, and sometimes still do. Children play in the dirt street, not with toys, but with sticks, wheels, and their own imaginations, making forts from rocks and battles from dust. School exists, sort of, if the teacher is in town and not off visiting family or recovering from a bout of fever. Learning is minimal. Reading, writing, maybe some arithmetic if you're lucky. Lessons are written on slate boards with bits of chalk or charcoal, and the room smells like old wood, ink, and boredom. If you're educated, even a little, you're a valuable resource in a town where letters are read aloud by the same man who cuts hair, pulls teeth, and delivers news from weeks ago. His shop leaks when it rains and smells faintly of soap and whiskey. Still, he's important. He remembers everything. Who borrowed money, whose cow got loose, and who hasn't been seen in days. In your pocket, if you're a man, you might carry a small folding knife, a few coins, and a photo of your mother, perhaps, or someone who promised they'd return but never did. If you're a woman, you move with your head low, your steps sure, your arms full of something that needs doing. You don't often rest, because rest is a luxury, and here luxuries are thin as air. Now the sun is high, casting short shadows that leave little shelter. People retreat indoors, not to nap, but to escape the worst heat and find anything to do in the shade. Sewing, mending, whittling, watching, time passes slowly in the West. Not because there's peace, but because every task takes longer. Every comfort must be earned, if you're lucky enough to lie down. You close your eyes not to sleep, but just to stop looking. Even that is a relief. Around you, the quiet isn't empty. It's filled with soft sounds. Mice skittering beneath floorboards. A horse stamping in the dirt outside. Wind whispering through cracks in wooden walls. You may dream of rain, or fruit, or a pillow that doesn't smell faintly of mildew and straw. But here, dreams are luxuries too. As evening begins its slow descent, the sky turns orange, then pink, and finally, a quiet purple. Shadows stretch across the town, long and tired, like the people themselves. There's no rush, no grand announcement of nightfall, just a slow dimming, like the world gently closing its eyes. But your day isn't done yet. There are chores to finish, animals to feed and shelter, a fire to rekindle, and food if there is any to reheat. Dinner is usually the same as lunch, only colder, and eaten with less conversation. As the stars begin to appear, faint and far apart, you notice your shoulders ache, your hands are sore, and your stomach hums with both hunger and weariness. You've survived another half of a day, just barely, and somehow, without drama or excitement. The West has reminded you that survival isn't about gunfights or gold. Russia, it's about patience, endurance, and doing the same hard things again tomorrow. This was just the afternoon. Evening in the Wild West doesn't arrive with fanfare or fireworks. It simply seeps into the bones of the day, soft and slow, like the cooling of bread pulled from an oven long ago. The sun, which once scorched everything it touched, now dips lazily behind the low hills on the horizon, casting shadows that stretch like sleepy cats across the dirt paths and weathered buildings of the town. The sky dims gently, not abruptly, turning from gold to peach, from peach to dusty lavender, and finally into a soft, indigo hush. You feel the breeze again, Nakula, this time, tinged with the faint smells of earth, dried grass, and smoke from nearby hearth fires being kindled. There's a hush to everything, a collective exhale, as if even the animals understand the day is folding itself away. Chickens cluck themselves to roost, horses nuzzle against fence posts, and a dog curls under a wagon wheel, its tail twitching only slightly as dreams begin to stir behind closed eyes. For those living here, this is the hour of small comforts. Someone might strike a match to light a kerosene lamp, the faint hiss of its wick breaking the quiet like a whisper. That soft glow spills onto the room's rough plank floors, bouncing off thin plates and cracked mugs, catching in the curve of a worn rocking chair that creaks softly, swaying without rhythm. Meals, if there is one, are modest, perhaps a bit of boiled beans or a stew of root vegetables and salt pork, served in dented bowls that have passed through more hands than anyone can recall. You eat slowly, not just from exhaustion, but because you know there will be no second helpings, no midnight snacks, no refrigeration waiting to surprise you with leftovers tomorrow. Food is a sacred kind of scarcity here. Conversation around the table, if it happens, is sparse and slow. A mention of weather, a small complaint about a loose fence post, a quiet chuckle over something the neighbor's goat did. Even laughter is subdued, wrapped in a kind of restraint that comes from lives spent conserving not just food and water but energy, emotion, even hope. After dinner, some might sit on porches and watch the stars blink into existence one by one, as if the sky is slowly remembering itself. There are no street lights to wash them out. No hum of electricity, no television to distract the eye. The stars are bold and ancient, and they speak in silence to those willing to look. You might hear the hoot of an owl from the edge of the woods, or the crack of a branch, somewhere out near the empty fields, but nothing threatening, nothing loud, just the world stretching its limbs. The body, tired as it is, begins to surrender. Joints creak, feet throb, and every muscle remembers the weight of the day. You might wash up using a basin of cold water, splashing your face in the dim lamplight while staring into a mirror, so cloudy with age that your reflection seems like someone else's dream. There is no toothbrush, just salt, baking soda, or a rag. No pajamas either. You simply loosen your belt, fold back the quilt, and slip under the scratchy covers, hoping tonight the straw in your mattress won't poke you quite so often. Maybe someone hums a lullaby, maybe the wind sings through a gap in the wall, but otherwise, bedtime comes not with comfort, but with necessity. You lie still, eyes adjusting to the darkness, and try not to think about the mice that might be moving beneath the floorboards, or the sound of coughing from the next room, or the knowledge that you'll wake up tomorrow to the same day, just in a slightly different order. And yet, even in this weariness, there's a strange kind of peace, a rhythm, a cycle that asks nothing more than for you to repeat it. There are no calendars in most homes, only the season, the moon, and the aching in your hands to tell you what day it might be. Sleep comes slowly, not as a gift, but as a quiet agreement between body and mind. And while you may drift off thinking of comforts, you miss hot water, soft pillows, science that feels cleaning. Also begin to understand the people who lived here didn't survive because they were heroes or outlaws. They survived because they endured. And endurance, in this corner of the world, is the most ordinary kind of bravery. As your breath slows and your eyes flutter closed, the night deepens, and the town disappears into shadow, and hush, just another quiet night in the West, where the hardest things were done in silence, and the simplest moments meant the most. Midnight in the Wild West isn't marked by clocks or alarms. It drifts in like a low fog, soft and unnoticed, wrapping its arms around a town already half asleep. The wind slows to a whisper, if it moves at all, and the temperature dips just enough to remind you of how thin your quilt is, how much the night air can seep into your bones, even through the cracks in the wooden walls. There are no sirens, no engines, no flashing lights, just the creak of the rafters above you, the gentle snore of someone across the room, maybe the slow scrape of a branch against the roof. It's a world made of sounds that you only hear when the rest of the world has given up trying to be loud. And in those moments, when your eyes are closed and the darkness feels like a thick blanket, you might notice things modern people forget: how the quiet isn't empty, how the dark isn't lonely, how the world continues without needing you to fill it. You shift a little under the covers, the straw beneath you crunching faintly, releasing the scent of dry grass and dust. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote might yip once, then silence again. The stars outside are so bright they almost feel alive. And if you were to get up and step outside, barefoot, on the cold boards, you'd see a sky that stretches forever, deeper and clearer than anything you've ever seen through glass. The Milky Way hangs like a ribbon, and the moon, if it's out tonight, casts long shadows across the empty road, like ghosts that forgot to vanish. Most of the town sleeps uneasily, not from nightmares, but from the simple discomforts of the thumb. No mattress springs, no smooth cotton sheets, no soundproof walls or cozy temperature control, just bodies curled into whatever comfort they can manage, hoping morning won't come too soon. For some, the night is the only time to be still. A mother might sit rocking a baby who won't sleep, whispering soft songs that came from her grandmother's lips. A shopkeeper might scribble numbers into a ledger by the dim glow of a lantern, the ink smudging slightly as his tired hand slows. A teenage boy might lie awake on the floor of a one-room cabin, listening to the breath of his family around him, staring at the ceiling beams and wondering if you'll ever see the ocean. These quiet moments don't get written down in history books, but they happened every night, over and over, like pages in a diary that no one ever intended to read. The Wild West wasn't always loud and lawless. It was often this: the slow settling of dust, the stretching of sore limbs, the flicker of flame as it dies in the hearth. Dreams came. Sometimes, though they were not of riches, or duels, or discoveries. They were dreams of full meals, of soft rain, of boots that didn't leak. And though they were small, they were dreams all the same. Even in towns where danger occasionally loomed, where horses were stolen or tempers flared over fences and cattle, most nights were like this: one, quiet, tense in their stillness, but gentle in their rhythms. And in that rhythm, sleep became survival. You couldn't afford to be tired tomorrow. You needed your strength for chopping wood, for fetching water, for patching roofs, for digging graves. There was no luxury of a day off. The town had no weekend, no vacation, no holidays beyond what could be celebrated with pie and a prayer. The only promise was that the sun would rise again, and the work would begin again, and you'd still be here, doing your part. And that promise, somehow, was enough. As the hours drift by, and the darkest part of night settles in, you might roll over, pull the blanket tighter around your shoulders, and forget just for a moment that you were never really there. That this is only a story, a soft walk through another time, and yet it feels real enough. The chill in the air, the silence in your ears, the hum of a life that was never glamorous but always full. As you sink deeper into stillness, the Wild West sleeps with you, not in the way of gunfighters and saloon doors, but in the way of lonely rocking chairs, cooling ashes, and people who did hard things quietly, without applause. This is what midnight was. Not a moment of drama, but a deep, slow breath taken together by everyone, before the long road of morning returned. Dawn in the Wild West doesn't arrive with an alarm or a buzzing phone. It creeps in gently, softly, almost apologetically, brushing across the sky in pale streaks of gray and soft lavender. There are no curtains to block it out, just warped wooden slats, and maybe an old cloth nailed to a window frame. Light enters whether you're ready or not, and it brings with it the faintest sounds of a town waking up again. The soft shuffle of boots, On packed dirt, the clink of a tin bucket against a well, the first cautious lowing of a cow that knows it's milking time. Your body is sore even before you move, as if sleep was just a temporary pause rather than true rest. Your back aches from the straw mattress, your neck from the way your head found a dip in the bed that wasn't there the night before, and your feet. They already feel tired, but the day waits for no one. A rooster might crow, though they don't always follow the rules. They crow whenever they feel like it, just as the sun peeks over the hills and casts long shadows across the dusty ground. Inside the house, if you live with family, someone stirs the coals in the hearth, coaxing them back to life with breath and scraps of kindling. A metal pot is set above the flame, the smell of weak coffee or boiling oats rising slowly, filling the space with the closest thing this world has to warmth. There's no luxury of long mornings. There's no shower, no fresh towel, no morning playlist. You might splash your face with cold water from a basin, rub your teeth with salt or ash, button your same shirt from yesterday, and step outside into the kind of morning that feels older than you. The air is cool and smells like earth and smoke and maybe faint manure, drifting in from the neighboring property around you. Others do the same in adjusting suspenders, women tying scarves around hair that hasn't been brushed properly in days, children rubbing sleep from their eyes, with hands still dirty from yesterday's games. The routine is nearly wordless. You feed the animals before you feed yourself. Chickens get grain. The cow gets led to the barn. The pig gets scraps from last night's stew. These creatures are both burden and blessing food, yes, but also warmth, company, responsibility, missing. A chore isn't just lazy, it means hunger later. After the animals are settled, you return indoors to eat whatever's available. Maybe cornbread, maybe leftover beans, maybe a raw egg in a tin cup, swallowed whole for strength. It's never glamorous, never filling, but it keeps you upright. There's no newspaper, no morning radio. If news arrives, it arrives weeks late by someone traveling through a letter, a rumor, a whispered update about something that happened far away and may as well be fiction. But life here doesn't wait for headlines. There are fences to mend, tools to sharpen, clothes to patch. Everything you own has to last longer than it was meant to. Nothing gets thrown away if it can be stitched, nailed, or repurposed. Even broken teacups become planters. Worn out boots get lined with scraps of cloth. A shirt with no sleeves becomes a rag. The people of this place are inventors, not by choice, but by survival. Children may not go to school today if there's too much work to do. Girls help with cooking and cleaning. Boys help in the fields or at the forge. They're young, but childhood here is short and quiet. Laughter happens, but it's not the loud kind. It's more like a puff of air, brief, breathy, and quickly swallowed by the wind. You might pause for a moment in the doorway and look out toward the hills. The view is beautiful in a way that's hard to describe. Wide, empty, and endless. There's no hum of traffic, no glassy skyline, no glow of distant buildings, just land and sky and silence, a beauty that feels ancient, untouched, and a little lonely. If you wanted to write it down, you'd need ink and paper, neither of which is easy to come by. And so most stories remain unspoken, passed in murmurs, stored in memory, or carved into wooden fences by idle hands. As morning slides into late morning, the sun begins to warm the ground again, and your shadow shrinks as the work grows heavier. You know the rest of the day will be just as long as the one before, with no promise of anything new, just another chance to get things right, to hold things together, to endure. And yet, there's comfort in that rhythm. No decisions about what to wear, no digital distractions, no endless scroll, just the simplicity of surviving, of keeping the world small and manageable and known. It's not a life of adventure. It's not a storybook tale, but it's a life. And in this quiet morning light, as your hands wrap around a tin cup, your feet in yesterday's boots, and your thoughts still somewhere between sleep and labor, it feels like enough. As the day stretches into its second half, and the heat begins to hum just above the earth, a sense of sameness settles over the town like a soft, warm blanket, familiar and heavy. The chores of the morning blend into the labors of the afternoon, with no real dividing line, only the shifting angle of the sun and the deepening of shadows near the buildings. You might find yourself repairing a broken hinge with an old nail, fetching water from the creek in a wooden bucket that leaks just slightly, or shooing chickens out of the herb garden again. Because the fence you built is more suggestion than barrier. No one speaks of dreams here, not because they don't exist, but because they are so often quieted by the sound of real work. If someone does speak of getting out or going east, the others just nod politely and change the subject. The truth is, most don't leave. They stay because this is what they know. This dust, these tools, this rhythm. And over time, even hardship becomes a kind of comfort, because at least it's predictable. Even the threats of the weather storms, the fires, the fever are accepted like old acquaintances. When the sky darkens with a summer storm, you close the shutters and pray the roof holds. When illness spreads, you brew the same teas and use the same remedies passed down for generations, hoping one of them will help. And when someone dies, you gather, not to cry loudly, but to carry wood for the casket, to cook for the family, to say their name once in the wind before letting silence take it. That silence, in truth, is the great character of this world, not danger, not glory, but silence. It rests on every beam of every barn, drifts in through every crack in every wall. It's there when a woman sits darning socks alone by lamplight, or when a man sharpens a blade just to keep his hands busy. It's there when the dog perks its ears but decides not to bark, or when the church bell doesn't ring because there is no reason for it today. In the West. In the West, quiet is not the absence of life. It is the form life takes. When there is no one to impress, the day fades as it always does, slowly, stubbornly, with no apology. The sky turns the color of worn denim and then of ashes, and the town begins to disappear again into itself. You wash your hands in the same tin basin, eat the same supper in the same wooden chair, and say goodnight, not because you are full or content or satisfied, but because the day is over, and there's no more light to see by. You lie down once again, in the same bed, on the same straw, your body tired in all the same places. Early sun, not for entertainment, but for reassurance, the roof creaking, the wind brushing the eaves, the occasional hoot of that same owl, and maybe, just maybe, you understand it now. Why one day in the Wild West could be more than enough. Not because it was too violent or too wild, but because it was so deeply, thoroughly human. Every moment required you to be present, to endure, to feel everything. Heat, hunger, fatigue, silence, loss. There was no way to distract yourself. You simply lived. And though it wasn't glamorous, it was complete. As your breathing slows and your thoughts soften, you might carry this world with you into Slipknot. The stories of cowboys and gunfights, but the ones no one told. The laundry that never dried, the pie that burned, the boot that never quite fit, the smile exchanged on the porch as the stars came out again. These were the real things, the quiet things, the things that held this place together. And as you drift off now, surrounded by stillness, perhaps you're not so different from them after all, just someone trying to rest, to recover, and to meet another day with quiet strength. The West sleeps again, and so do you.